Producer Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes into new areas. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast. All right, our guest today has written on the Comedy Central roast of Alec Baldwin and Bruce Willis. He was a consulting producer on the Comedy Jam, co-producer on Crashing, and a producer on Upload. He has appeared on Conan, Last Comic Standing, and Roast Battle. He has 2 comedy albums, Sadamantium and Mega Man Child. He is one of the hosts of the Wrestle Roast podcast. We are honored to have the mighty Mike Lawrence here. On Instagram, he is at Mike Lawrence Comedy, on Twitter at Lawrence, and on Patreon at patreon.com/WrestleRoasts.
How we doing, man?
I don't have a Twitter. I don't think. I wouldn't want people to go to the wrong Twitter.
You know what's funny? Just off air, we were just talking when I was looking something up. It directed me to another Mike Lawrence, and Joe asked me, he goes, "Oh, does he play music?" And I looked down, I go, "No, this one is an 81-year-old bridge player." I was like,
yeah.
So I don't think. Yeah.
We're all winners.
I will have you know that
so
Mike
no Twitter.
Lawrence's credit list is longer than Alberto Del Rio's arrest record.
Barely. Let's compare when we're both dead.
Now, Mike, your mother was a comedian. Was that going to be something? Did that make it easier for you to want to get into comedy, or the opposite?
No, it was the reason I didn't want to. I did poetry for years, and there was no money or prestige or joy in it. And then, but I liked performing. I liked the attention, and I was like, I'll try comedy, and it was good. Like, I was able to talk to my mom about it and stuff, so it helped in terms of bonding. But yeah, I mean, I saw what comedy actually was growing up, and nothing about that made me want to do it.
It's funny you said with poetry, though. It's like, I was like, you hit like no money, no fame, but then you said no joy. And I'm like, oh man, like, why would you want it at this point then?
Yeah.
So, when was the first time you thought you made it in comedy then, as you were going along in comedy?
I would say, like, making it to me as when you could pay your rent. doing comedy. And so that was about like 2011, 2012. You know, I owe a lot to John Oliver, who took me on the road with him for a good amount of tour dates, and then put me on his TV show, and with that I was able to start making a living. You know, not a great one at first, but you know, I was collecting unemployment before that, and I was stocking restaurants at LaGuardia, so it was definitely life changing. And even like making, you know, 30,000 a year doing stand up was like the richest. I mean, it really was the richest I'd ever been, but also by far the richest I'd ever felt.
Did you have? I mean, you saw, like you said, the behind the scenes. You know, with your mom being a comedian, you saw what comedy was. But did you still have some favorite comedians? You'd say growing up that maybe influenced you too?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's funny because like I watched a lot of stand up with my dad. Like my mom, I think was too deep in it. She'd always have an anecdote like, "Oh, that guy's a hack," you know. "Oh, he tried to touch me." Like all these like, you know, too real stories, which now like I'm fascinated / horrified by some of them. I was just a kid then. Yeah, Carlin was a big influence. My dad and brother loved watching Def Comedy Jam, you know, so like Bruce, like a lot of those performance stuff. You know, BET Comic View was like big in our house. And I remember seeing the first house party with the comic Robin Harris as kid's dad was like that was like the funniest guy to me when I was like 7 or 8. And Living Color was really big, and I was a big Jim Carrey fan and a big Damon Wayans fan. So yeah, like a lot of it was more so sketch than stand up. I mean, but you know, we would watch Carlin, and I'd say the first comic I identified like connected with like on a personal level was probably Patton Oswalt. Of just like, oh, you can talk about nerd shit? That's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I was thinking about it. Like, it was like, what is it? Like, I was a huge fan of African American comedy stuff growing up too, like Pryor, Murphy. And I was like, what is it? The whitest redheaded people end up loving like Pryor and Murphy. You know?
Yeah, I think like, I mean, one, it's just funny, but like the sincerity and the performance aspects of it, especially like, you know, when you're a kid and there's like an adult named Sinbad, that's cool.
That's so true.
Look at his pants.
Now, so you're on the journey here in comedy. What was some of the best advice you ever received in comedy?
I think, you know, I think some of it was from, you know, my mom told me to get an education no matter what. And, you know, she was like, yeah, move to New York if you want. And she had never, you know, she stayed in Florida the whole time. But she was like, yeah, but get the degree and you know, so stuff like that. And I never used a degree. I've used comedy. So, but you know, it's something that if I had a kid, I'd probably say to them too. It's a practical thing. And I think just I'm trying to think, like, I've gotten a lot of advice over the years. I think just like enjoying every moment. I don't remember who told me that, but like just being happy. I think, you know, yeah, seeing John Oliver. The thing, like a lot of the best advice I got was just watching people that I loved and respected, and seeing the way that they did things and the way that they treat people was really helpful. You know, Tom Papa gave me my first writing job, and that guy gave me a lot of great advice. You know, Mark Maron gave me a lot of great advice. Amy Schumer, you know, just different people that would like, you know, and seeing how they led by example. You know, the comedians that would surround themselves with younger people that would challenge them to be creative and things like that was inspiring to me.
Now, I was just thinking too. Like Joe wrote down about some of the roasts and stuff. I know you wrote for, and you've been on the roast. But when did you realize you had a knack for like roast jokes?
Oh, when I worked at McDonald's. I was able
Really?
to like make fun of people in the drive-through and employees and stuff. Like, you had to have thick skin, just so the acne would have a place to live. Working at McDonald's, so it was definitely there. I mean, maybe before that in school, I was picked on, and I would make fun of people back, but I would definitely say, I was born in the shadows of the golden arches.
So funny. I love the Batman references. This is great. So we definitely are into the nerd stuff. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Is that a bat behind you too? I think I might.
Yeah, it's a Batwing and a stilt man.
I love it. That Dark Knight. Okay, this is off topic, but just because you're talking about the Dark Knight, to me was for growing up. I'm 44, so I grew up off those, the goofy Superman, and I loved it when I was a kid. But I was starting to get away from it a bit, and then like the Dark Knight series came, and I was like, oh, this can be done really, really well too.
You mean the movies or like the Dark Knight Returns comic?
I meant the movies. The movies.
Okay,
yeah. Yeah, I just always thought that was like, and talking nerd stuff, I really enjoyed. Like, for me, that's when like the movie started to get a more serious tone. Like, I don't know, like the early 80s still had kind of a goofy feel to it. It was fun, but
Nice.
Now, so how was it? Because I know you were on the battle, the roast battles too. How was that for you?
That was fun. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. It's funny. Like, yeah, I did get an autism diagnosis earlier this year, and I realized like how much that helped with roasting, because like I don't feel things sometimes in the same way that other people do. So it's like when people are like, doesn't it hurt you what they're saying? I'm like, I don't have the emotional capacity to absorb that information. If I don't want to, I can just turn it off, which I know is a little scary. And now trying to be more emotional, makes roasting harder, because especially like even making fun of other people and like thinking about like I just wasn't thinking about the severity of what I was saying sometimes. And it's also because it only matters a lot of times if they react to it in a way like a lot of roast battling. It's like a lot of like hardcore wrestling where you're just beating the shit out of each other for a pop. But then, not everybody is into that. And I had to realize that as like a roast battle judge, that even though someone wanted to do roast battle, like they weren't ready to get like hammered by the judges.
Yeah, you were talking about being on the spectrum there with autism. We've had some autistic comedians on before too. A guy named Suitman out in the West Coast. I know. Are you? Because we were surprised that there was a couple comedians we had on here that had autism too. Are you well aware of like the autism community in comedy, or are you so busy? Is it something that doesn't really on your radar, or
I know of certain comics. I don't know about like the larger community. I don't know if there's meetups I'm not invited to or whatever. But no, I know other comics and that have it, and I talk to, and it is a spectrum, so it's like everyone's experiences are different, and but no, it's been awesome in a way of like I've had other comics like reach out to me, and like, hey, it's cool that you got the diagnosis for yourself and that you're open about it, and it's been very supportive, and a good group of people that we trust and understand each other, even though we can't make eye contact.
That's cool though to have that support. Now, When did you get into wrestling then, and how did you get hooked on that?
Oh, that's like lifelong, Yeah, no, I at a very young age, the Hasbro era,
Yes.
WrestleFest, all that, like the characters and all that. I went to the Royal Rumble '91 in Miami, Florida, where I'm from. It sucked because I was a big Warrior fan and he lost.
Oh.
And I didn't like Hogan, and he won the Rumble and he threw out Earthquake, who I've just always liked Earthquake.
That's funny.
There's something about a 27-year-old man that looks 50 that I'm a bit.
Yes.
The guys.
Yeah, Iron Anderson disease.
Like I've always like rooted for.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. That Warrior loss when Savage cracked the scepter over his head.
Yeah, and it was like slaughter, and it was like about Iraq, and because
So we were talking about the Savage thing.
Yeah, Royal Rumble number 91, and it being all about like the Iraq War and patriotism and not caring, and
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
2008. I was like, I don't know what politics, It's like I don't fucking. And to me, it was like the Iraq War was just a thing that preempted The Simpsons.
That's so funny. I never thought about that. Yeah, see, I was a little older. I was like, this seems too serious for my pro wrestling. Like, why are we talking about this? And I love the Warrior.
Especially knowing about like Hulk Hogan, the person in real life, like there's no one to root for.
No.
And then I found out, and it's like wrestling. I know everything's predetermined. I don't like to use the F word.
Me too. No, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
But like, or like a lot of it's made up. But I will say, I was devastated when I found out that Sergeant Slaughter was never actually in the military.
Yes.
But that he talks about it like he is. It's like the stolen valor thing. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's I didn't find that one out until a couple of years ago because I don't know why. Talk about a mark. I always he was on G.I. Joe. Yeah. They must have did their homework, surely. No,
but he talks about like being in Vietnam and stuff, like the actual Bob Remus, like the real guy, and it's like, but you weren't. That's like not cool.
No. Like, how deep are you into this, like, character? Yeah. Right?
Jesse's like, I was a Navy SEAL and I never saw you.
Jesse was right.
It's another conspiracy, man.
Oh, man. Who are your favorite? This is not even off. I don't care. Who were your favorite announcers growing
up? It wasn't something I thought about that much as a little kid, but I mean, Heenan, I love.
Hilarious.
And Heenan and Gorilla, I think is my go-to team. I mean, even like I didn't know that Vince McMahon was the owner of the company,
right?
But like he was so stilted, just as a human being.
Yeah,
and the way that he talked,
it was insane. Yeah,
and I liked I stuck around till like 94, 95, so I like Lawler. Lawler would crack me up. I mean, I remember watching the SummerSlam Survivor Series 93. I know he was also at SummerSlam 93, but the way that he would make fun of Helen Hart was so funny to me as a kid because it was just so mean.
Oh my God. Yeah. He tortured that family.
He just no-sold it. I just said, okay, I guess, I've had 9 kids come out of my coach, so I don't feel anything anymore.
93 was that with the joint, the little clown, the Knights? Oh, right, that was fine. Okay, the Knights. And,
it was supposed to be. Oh yeah, that's right. It was supposed to be Jerry Lawler, and then ended up being Shawn Michaels because Jerry Lawler got into some issues.
Yes.
Outsized demon.
That's you were talking earlier about with comedy, how you met a lot of good people up there. Like, so on the wrestling aspect, they always say don't meet your heroes, but I'm assuming you've met some people. How's that going for you? Pretty well, or?
Yeah, it's fun, man. Because I've done some roast wrestling, roasting wrestlers and stuff, and yeah, like Jeff Jarrett. I'd say on the record, Jeff Jarrett was the reason I stopped watching wrestling. That it was like 95, and he was like being featured more and more, and I just hated his character. I hated him. And then I did the Bruce Pritchard roast in 2018, and he was on the dais, and he was so nice beforehand, and I went in harder on him than anybody else. And he was like so fun and like such a good sport about it. Like, I did a joke, which was the only good angle you've ever been in is Karen. And he did this thing. It was so funny where he like gets up and he like glares at me, and then he cracked a smile. And it was like, oh, okay, this guy's cool.
That's funny.
Because it's like, it was like the wrestler in him, like the showman, like, okay, people want to see me react to this. But I know you're joking. It's cool.
Yeah, he's in on it. That's good.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was so awesome.
Now, what made you decide to get into podcasting and of wrestling?
It was just, like I've been friends with Dan St. Germain since 2007. He's one of my best friends, and Scott Chaplin. And I did their show Total F and Marks a few times, and it was fun. And then they added Robert Karpelis from WWE Creative-ish, that big Twitter feed, and he was a WWE writer. And that was the show that they were doing was Total F and Marks. They had like a new format, and then I guessed it on like 2 episodes in December, and then Dan was just like, "You just want to do the show with us?" And I was like, "Okay." And then we just started to do the show, and then figured out how to reformat it a little bit, add the roasting element. When it was Total F and Marks, it was like this 10 count, and they would go through all these different topics. And now we've kind of like simplified it a bit to, there's less topics, but there's still like a lot of like recurring segments and stuff. And, it's fun. I think AEW is a lot more fun to talk about than WWE right now. So that's a lot of what we do. Outside of, we roast a wrestler. We talk about what we like about them, what we dislike about them, jokes, a moment from their career. And then, we often review Dynamite, and we talk about like our favorite and least favorite thing from the week in wrestling. Because it's like, like WWE like just feels the same every week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the thing with like AEW, what I love about it is the good stuff is great, and the bad stuff is just fucking bonkers.
Yeah,
like they don't have as much of a filter. So there's horrible stuff on AEW, but it's even more fun to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like Arn Anderson saying, I put a Glock to a guy's head, and like this week he was like burning clothes. Like it's the silliest thing, but it's hilarious, and it's like it is more fun to talk about than anything that's like overly produced on WWE.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as sterile. Absolutely, it's very
and it's like AEW. It's like just about everyone on WWE. Like it makes sense why they were hired. There are just people on AEW that makes no sense that they're there, other than that they're like someone's friend or something, like a Dr. Luther.
Right, I forgot.
Like our punching bag is QT Marshall. Like we always make fun of him, and he's so fun to talk about because it's like, why is this guy on TV? and then he like is prominently featured. He's like, they put him in a match in between CM Punk's return and an Omega title match. It was him and Paul White, and it's like this is a joke that's gone too far. Right?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Yeah, you're right. It's very interesting. And I was thinking about this. I was actually watching what was it? NWA the other day, and they had something that was you could tell it's a tape show, and somebody said they called Aldous Magnus. And they corrected him. They said, "Oh, you're so used to calling him Magnus from your TNA days." I think it was Velvet was on the show, and it's Aldous. And I thought, if that was WWE and this was taped, that would have never made air. But instead, it's like, it's fun. People make mistakes. It's no big deal. And I think that's what I kind of like. And I'm not hating on WWE, but I think that is one of the issues. It's just very sterile, and everything is just so overly produced sometimes. It's just like, I was like, I want to know that maybe some stuff will go wrong once in a while. Maybe, I don't know.
Or just switch things up. It's like I love that on the latest episode of Dynamite, and it's not something they should do all the time, but it was like an 8-man tag that opened the show, and they were already all in the ring, and at 8:01, they're already wrestling. And you're already like off to the races where, every show where it's like a package and all this preamble, and even, like entrances are awesome and they should always be done for the live crowd. But for your television audience, I don't know if you need them every single time. Sometimes just like, boom, here's the match. And what Dynamite does that I really love, or just AEW in general, they tell you everything that's going to be on the show.
Right. And
within the first 2 minutes, and then you're like, okay, because like that idea of, hey, we're all just here at the wrestling show because we're wrestlers, but none of us know what we're doing tonight, is just absurd if you think about it.
They just wandered in.
Have a match with you. But, like Dynamite never has impromptu matches. Like maybe they'll, the thing that they might set up a match for Rampage and it's in front of the same audience, but even that's like a different show, or they'll set it up for next week.
I like that 8-man tag too, because they didn't do the entrance, but we didn't get a commercial either. So it was like 16 minutes of just wrestling, and I was like, like you said, I don't know if we could skip the entrances all the time, but once in a while, it's pretty nice. Like, okay.
Yeah. And that's probably a decision they had to make, but and then, I mean, it's interesting now we're just talking about Dynamite, but it is fascinating, like wrestling fandom in general, but like we were talking about our show this week. We were so, excited about Punk coming back, and we're already like, can you just do something, dude? I don't want him to go. I just want him to like feud with somebody.
Right. Yeah, he's had this opponent. Right? Yeah, we're waiting for like the story. Wrestling's all about
for sure.
So we do have a segment on here where we talk about a top 5. It's kind of our signature thing we do every week. It's just like we have to do a little different. So it's called the 5-3-1. So we're just looking to get a top 5 list from you on a future episode, and we're doing top 5 current tag teams.
Okay, top 5 current tag teams. I'm gonna go with, I'll say the Usos.
Okay.
I think when we look back at their career, and even what they're doing now, it's like they're awesome. They feel like they're part of the main event. They're so good that WWE doesn't care that one of them is a drunk driver that might murder people.
Right. That's the mark of a good tag team.
I mean, they're such a good tag team that the other one will give him his pee. Or maybe they do twin magic with the breathalyzer test.
That's a wrestling,
yeah. The old Hebner 88.
Killer Bees.
I think that they're amazing. The Lucha Brothers.
Yeah.
Are just, and I'm not just picking these because they're champions. I'm not being all kayfabe about it, but I mean, the Lucha Brothers, it's like you always see something new, and it's just incredible. Proud and Powerful. I love those guys. They're so fun. I hate that AEW will just like act like they don't exist for like 2 months at a time, and then they're just gone, because I think they should be on the show a lot more. I would say then the Street Profits, and mainly because I think Montez Ford is going to be a huge star.
Yeah.
And Angelo Dawkins is the size of 2 Janettis. But yeah, he's fine. Like he's a good second
He's
guy.
outshadowed though.
But he's gonna get tuckered really quick. Once Montez Ford goes on as a remember there was a guy named Tucker for 2 years, and then
fucking Tucker when the
because I love Montez is awesome. The Flag Splash is awesome. And then if I had to pick one more, I would say I'm trying to think of all the I really do like the Acclaimed.
Oh yeah.
I'm a character guy. I'm a gimmick guy, and they're fun. And AEW does have a great tag team division. And then they also have, like I said, like guys that are just like, what the first episode I did of Total Effin' Marks, I was like, guys, I'm gonna have a segment called "What is Angelico?" Tell me what Angelico is, because I don't know what he is. Like, what's the name? And like, okay, he's just a guy named Angelico. And they say he's like the master of submissions, but he never wins. He never taps anyone out. So yeah, I would go with those guys because they're really fun. I was really happy the Caster thing was passed and that he's back on.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they the Young Bucks are fun. Lucha, I already said them. Jurassic Express, yeah, I like them too. I read like I think Robert or one of the guys said on the podcast that WWE has like a women's tag title, but there's only one team left. And I think it's like Charlotte and Nikki Ash, and that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because AEW just announced that they're doing that women's. It's going to be the TBS championship. It'll be a women's championship. And I thought, what a nice idea. We didn't have to cram a tag team division because, we don't have teams right now, and that's fine.
Well, the joke I always make is I call the women's matches 925 live because almost every week they're at exactly 925. They're usually in the same segment. Most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time on AEW, when the women's match is going to happen.
That's true.
And they only ever have one. So it is interesting to me that there's now 2 titles, but they still only have one ever match. It's like, is it the TBS title, but they're all going to be on Dark? Because it's like, it is amazing that all the women have these like amazing numbers, but they only ever do one match. It's like, how did Red Velvet win 12 times? I won't ever seen her lose on Dynamite.
Yeah, it's funny that they almost got the Goldberg records where it was kind of softened. Like they had the weekend off. Like, oh, Goldberg's now 125.
Yeah, except they actually happen. That's the thing. It's like you can't. It's like even though I love the show, like I'm not gonna watch Dark. I'm not gonna, and I don't like when they expect me to.
Right. Now, so you got wrestling, we got stand-up comedy, we got podcasting, you're writing. What would you say is your favorite thing to do right now?
Writing.
Right.
It pays the most, and it's fulfilling. It's like I've co-written the weekend update pieces for Pete Davidson with Pete and this amazing comic Dave Sears, and like those are fun. And even though it's like it's not me telling the jokes, the fact that like millions of people get to see these jokes that we all work on together is awesome to me.
That's cool. It's great. You got all these different passions too. You get to work on. Now, that being said, what would you say will be some of your goals then for the next year or so?
I love to, sell my own show. Just continue working. Like it's hard to get into show business, and it's even harder to stay. So I guess to just keep working and sell the life story of QT Marshall screenplay.
That's awesome. I hope that gets out there, man. I hope
He's
so
in the
happy
thick
there.
of it, even though his hair is thinning.
He really does have that whole haircut for men vibe too. Like,
Oh,
just
it's
looks like
amazing. Yeah. There's a documentary about him called The Wrestler, which is somehow sadder than the one with Mickey Rourke. And it's like him doing like a WWE tryout and not getting it, and like talking to his mom. We get to see Mama Marshall.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm a wrestling fan, so I'm going to look that up as soon as we're done here. I gotta find out.
I think it's on Tubi.
Oh yeah. They have all the documentaries on there.
Yeah.
There's one 365 Days and Counting. We interviewed some guy who directed that. He was on The Wrestler. He was actually like one of the executive producers or associate producer, which I found out the associate producer for films do whatever the executive producer tells you to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, Tubi. That's a great place to get some of your wrestling needs. So that note, I know Joe hit it at the beginning, but since we found out you don't have a Twitter, would you like to hit us with any social media and anything else you may want to promote?
Mike Lawrence comedy on Instagram. There's a Russell Roast Facebook page, and then obviously the Russell Roast podcast. If you like wrestling, if you like comedy. I think, we do a great job, and, the thing I would really say that I love about our show is, we're funny, but like we love wrestling and wrestlers, but we also don't pretend it's the most important thing in the world. We're able to like be silly about it, and it's such an absurd thing, pretend combat. Watching people in their underwear, and we point that out sometimes. So it's still real to me, but because the rest of my life is fake, I would say is the Wrestle Roast motto if I had to come up with one.
That's great stuff. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and
thank you.
love talking wrestling with you, man, and comedy. Have a good one, man. Thank you.
All right, you too, man.